So we've got the first idea was the one with the girl waking up in an asylum and going through the corridors and they're kind of coming into different rooms, Alice in Wonderland stuff. And then there was the high school one, party, and then we come into a concert, sort of more, slightly more rocky kind of thing, hoppy woppy. And then that last one, the one with Polaroids, with the photos of the girl, little snapshots of memories, mostly with her friends, it looked like to me. Anyone say anything about any of those? Yes, Max?
Yeah, they're all really good ideas. I like how sort of detailed and thought out they are. Like, you've obviously thought of good concepts. And the only thing is that I think you've sort of gone into them too much, and there's quite a lot of locations in every shoot. So I think in terms of getting it all filmed, it'd be hard with so many locations. So, for example, the Alice in Wonderland, you had so many. It'd be nice if you maybe narrowed down to 3 or something. And also just about the Alice in Wonderland, the subject of mental health can be quite touchy-feely, so that scene in the beginning, it could even work without it. Like, I don't even think it needs it, but just because it can be quite a sensitive subject.
Okay. Yeah, Molly?
I really like the last idea. I think that's my favourite idea because it's quite cool. So like you film the Polaroid and then it kind of goes into the scene. It's quite like 2-dimensional. Is that the word? No? Kind of like you transform in time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But then also, kind of what Max is saying for the first idea with Alice in Wonderland, I don't really see the connection between, because Alice in Wonderland is all like happy and like joyous, kind of like in a way, and then you've got like a asylum. It's a bit kind of too dark, I feel, for Alice in Wonderland. So I feel like either pick asylum kind of vibe or Alice in Wonderland vibe. But
3, 2.
Also, if you're relying on your actors a lot to like perform something like in the asylum, which could be, you know, it could be quite hard to do well. If you see what I mean.
you don't really know anyone who's been in an asylum. Is that what you're saying?
Oh. No, I just mean that, yeah.
Okay. Well, you got any of them where you've got one person in the middle of the video, you know, it does put a lot on them. It helps put people around sometimes.
Yeah.
People to interact with, basically, a bit less pressure on that one person. Yep.
I think the only real issue is the amount of people that are in some of the scenes, like in the party scene and like the concert, for instance, because it would be super difficult to film a concert scene in the studio. Like there just would be too many people to function with.
I'm going to go one step further and say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
To film a concert scene, you think about concert, even in the images you chose, you think about scale, and that you can't do scale in the studio because it's small. Also, when you talk about lots of people, that's really, really difficult to do, even if it's a party. If you think about party, you're really thinking about lots of people, unless it's a small dinner party or something, which is not what you're thinking of, I don't think. If you're thinking about a house party, you're thinking of 50 people, at least, I would say. And if you say, oh, we're only going to do 10 people in one corner of a room, you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot from the beginning, because then you've only got a little thing to film, there's not much to show, and it's difficult to execute the look of it. So those things with big crowds are really, one, we can't get enough actors or locations and lighting that's big enough. So any kind of, I'm sorry if anyone's got any festivals or anything like that, or scenes with big concerts and stuff, you just can't do those kind of scale. You might think about other ways of executing that. For example, a rock band don't only perform on the stage, they do things in between days. Smaller things that you can see, like recording in the studio or something smaller, but the big scale stuff is not possible, really, without budget and without so many acts and extras. Yes, Hannah, any thoughts on any of these 3 ideas?
I really like the last one, like everyone was saying, because I think it's quite a simple idea, but I think it'd be quite effective. In that she's using like another element going into it. And I think it's just really interesting.
Yeah, it gives you a technical device which helps to link it all together. I guess I like the images you've shown on the ones you've put as examples, because I can see how you can achieve them, because they're things that wouldn't be difficult to film. But I guess you need to go beyond that, because that would run its course in probably 20 seconds, and then you've still got 2 minutes to film. So you probably have to think about what other elements do you have? How does that develop and change? You always want to have, well, not always, but often you need some kind of arc where the video is changing as it's going along, or it just becomes repetitive. So whether that's a changing in narrative or new elements being introduced, or something changing within those elements, but you want some kind of arc, otherwise it just becomes showing stuff you've already shown. So that's really important.
You could show like a story of like what's happened in her life through the profile pictures.
The snapshots could add up to some kind of narrative strand. That's definitely possible. Yes. Yes. Come on, Manti.
What?
Any thoughts?
Everyone's kind of sad about this thing.
Okay. Nikki, anything to add?
No, just same thing with the party concept. I mean, it's hard to do. What you could do is like a radio thing, like it's like a car scene, and then the radio is playing, and then the artist's music is playing through someone's radio in the car. Could be done on a small scale, something like that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, there are issues with driving in cars, and that's not totally straightforward. Normally to shoot that in a video with a budget, you stick the car on top of a trailer, so it's being driven along in a lorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the cameras around the car and the trailer, and then you can.
Oh.
So that's how you normally shoot those things. And again, we have to see if that's feasible without a budget. But nothing's impossible. You find different ways of doing it. But that kind of thinking about how can we take that idea of what I want to achieve and not do it on that scale, but how can I think about how could we do that in another way is a good way of thinking about how can I solve this problem of not being able to do it that way, but I could get a similar vibe or similar effect by moving it into a different location. That's a good way of thinking about solving problems. Yeah. Louis, you got anything else to check in here?
Maybe like with the Alice in Wonderland one, with the white room, maybe you just like a montage of just that, just like quickly spraying up on the walls, and then like at the end, instead of like having to speak, or like her just doing it real quick and like a big picture.
There's a video from 2016 from a class, I had two classes that year. One's one I showed you, and I'm going to show you another one later.
Is it all the big hoops?
No, that was in the same class as well actually, that was the same year. That was Harvey's video in the house with the spraying.
Yeah.
There's another one called Gold, it's in an asylum that they did in the studio. With Tyre, yeah. With Tyre is the singer in it. So that, if you're still interested in going down that path, you can have a look at that. It's a pretty well executed video. There were a lot of props and a lot of different steps in that video. They did a pretty good job.
How did you get that heart?
That Heart to Beat. So that was one of the most fun videos, and I can show you the blog from Victoria, whose idea it was. And she pitched it and pitched like this idea of a girl in an asylum, and you see there holding her brain. And someone in the class, John T. said, "Oh, why don't you change it to heart, and then you could try and make it beat, because we could see it move with like special effects, some editing effect." And we looked at that, and that was going to be very technically difficult. So we found an even more fun way to do it. We got a pig's heart from the butchers. We met with Claire in biology, and they got a tube, and they fitted a tube into it, and the girl was blowing it to make it move.
That's
You just go really
But again, a really good example of getting going with an idea early to be able to work stuff out and plan it, but B, being willing to listen to what other people have got to say. Think, oh, that's good. I can use that. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. No one's trying to bang down any of your ideas, but they can probably all move and develop a bit. So try and listen to some ideas that are coming. Good idea from Nikki there, for example. I think picking up bits is going to help you move along. Anyone got any more? Or should we move on to the next? No, great. Well done, Kat. Good start.